He wasn't gaining weight, and then he started losing weight.
He would eat and swallow, but then it would spit right back up. He would not be able to hold anything down. So he just was not growing.
Mike and Leanne Gunderson were desperate for solutions. Their newborn baby Christopher was born with chronic pseudo-obstruction syndrome. It's a rare condition that paralyzed his stomach and parts of his intestines. He was unable to digest any nutrients or even take water.
I'd pray every night and not know what the end game was. You know, not knowing if he was going to die or if he was going to make it or what that looked like. We just had to enjoy the time that we had with him because we didn't know how long that was going to be.
There was no way to fix it. The only thing they could do was make him grow. So the issue was not how are we going to cure it. The issue was how are we going to keep him alive? How are we going to get nutrition into his body to keep him alive and help him grow?
Baby Christopher went through several major surgeries before doctors came up with a permanent solution. They connected a feeding tube directly into his intestines, bypassing his stomach. They put a second port into his stomach to pump out bile and saliva.
It was a really tough time, but I always heard this little voice, and just when I'd get really upset, just whisper in my ear, you know, don't worry, it'll all work out in the end.
The surgery allowed him to lead a normal, active life, but he grew up unable to eat or drink without painful stomach aches and vomiting.
I could do everything that anybody else could do, but just differently. I tried food and I just couldn't swallow it. It was, I did chew and spit, or I just drained it out of my top tube at the end of the day.
We just figured it out because we wanted him to live a normal life. We didn't want him to be, you know, oh, I have these feeding tubes, I can't do this and that. We wanted him to be able to just figure out, you know, yep, I have these feeding tubes and it's good because if I didn't, I wouldn't be alive, and I'm just gonna praise God for that, and I'm going to figure out ways around to do other things.
He wore a backpack that pumped formula into his feeding tube during the day. An IV pole fed him at night. Christopher lived with his condition for 16 years, until one day his family brought him to a healing service led by evangelist Bruce Van Natta.
During the whole sermon that he was talking, I felt like a pulse in my stomach the whole entire time.
After the service, Bruce gathered Christopher and his family together and prayed for a miracle healing.
I think I had my hand on Christopher's shoulder, but it just felt like his whole body was just, you know, shaking.
That G-tube is just vibrating really super, super fast underneath this t-shirt, and I noticed this, so I'm looking at it and I'm watching it and I'm thinking, I've never seen it do that before. And then that vibration starts to just like follow the pattern of his intestines. I can see it moving down his stomach down into the second tube, which was the J tube. And then the J tube started doing it too, and the whole thing is just doing this.
I felt just a big shock go through my shoulder and through my stomach, and the pulsing, it felt like a pounding feeling in my stomach.
I mean, you just knew what was happening and that he was being healed. And even when we all got out to the parking lot, we're standing there and it's like, what just happened? I mean, it was just one of those moments. It was one moment in time that changes everything.
What I really feel like is that was God jump-starting my stomach back up with a shock.
That night, his family went out to dinner, and Christopher ate the first full meal of his life with no complications.
I just started swallowing more and more, and I got a bigger and bigger smile on my face, and I had a really good time. It was one of the best days of my life. I just swallowed as much as I can and had the whole plate and had a nice drink too.
Christopher has been healed completely, and his feeding tube has been removed. Mike and Leanne say they are thankful for the long journey that brought a miracle healing to their son.
The harder the journey, the better the reward. And that's kind of the way I look at it now, is it was a long journey, and wow, what a reward.
God is so good, and he is so big and so compassionate, and and he can heal anything. Nothing is impossible for God. What is impossible for man is not impossible for God. Everything is possible for him.